Welcome back!
Hey, everybody!
It's episode 6
Woo, woo, woo.
of What We Have Learned.
Meow, meow, meow.
You should subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, even
Like,
though our
share,
Facebook name
comment,
is wrong.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, do all the fun stuff that people tell you to do.
If you're not already, I feel like you're behind now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hateful now if
It's
you're
kinda
already
rude
not
now.
subscribed and everything. But that's fine. You can get away with it, I guess.
We'll forgive you, I guess.
All right, Randy, what are we talking about today?
Today is Jonah.
Woo!
I feel like this is the first feature film movie that came out from Veggietales, and it is fire.
This was actually I could be wrong, but I think this is the first movie I watched in the theaters.
You probably did.
Probably the first one I ever watched in the theater. So it came out October 4th on my birthday, by the way. October 4th, 2002. It's a long time ago.
Oh
2002.
Let's see. I'm like a freshman in high school. I probably wouldn't watch this, honestly.
I wouldn't watch it in the theater.
Probably did.
So yeah, it was their first movie that they made, one of two, right? Because they just made the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything.
Yeah, those are the only ones.
Yeah. So good. Both of them are great. So a couple quick things about this one. Obviously, it's based on the story of Jonah.
Yeah.
And there was a few things that I thought that I liked, especially when they talked about the people of Nineveh would slap each other with fishes.
Yeah.
So good, so good. And then they had the cheese curls, and I mean it's just so many things that they started in this movie, and then they keep bringing them back.
Keep going.
Oh, another thing I liked about this one was that they had bloopers on it. Do you remember watching the bloopers?
Yeah, and I feel like this is one of the first times they really did that. Really put that out there. And what I keep telling my kids is, in animation, you have to make the bloopers.
Yeah.
There isn't really bloopers.
Right, exactly.
Sometimes they'll count bloopers where they'll show hair messing up or something. And that, you could count that as a blooper. But if someone being oh, I said ham sandwich, that's not a blooper. They did that.
They went back and shot all of that.
I think one of the things they do this for Toy Story movies and stuff. Pixar does this a lot. Yeah. Which is probably part of the reason that Veggietales was shoot, we're going to do it too. But I think how much it shows how much you love your job. If you're fooling around making bloopers because it's going to give a kid a good laugh. Right. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, so we were talking about this right before. So the silly song of the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything, that was released in 1997.
Yeah.
And so then they brought them back for this movie in 2002, which I'm glad they did because they're just the best.
Pirates Who Don't Do Anything are top tier, like Boys in the Sink.
The best. They're the best.
What's great is they little trivia is, I don't know if someone complained, but the first time that pirates show up, he actually has a skull.
Yeah, and then they change
and the crossbones, and they keep changing it. So the next time he shows, in this movie, he has tic-tac-toe.
Yeah.
And then in I might be the very silly song or that one, but there's one where they're hosting the silly songs, and he has those old Walmart smiley face stickers over it. But you can tell they left a little bit of it underneath, so it's they stuck a sticker on top of it. And it was they just could never settle. I don't remember what it looks like in Jonah. I mean, in the Pirates movie, it might be tic-tac-toe again, but I just
It's like the bunny song, how they changed the bunny song or whatever because people complain. They're my kids are going to be hating to eat whatever.
Yeah, it's they change stuff because they're oh, but it's too late, bro. It's out there. Once you put something out there, it's out there. You should just accept it.
I mean, I guess maybe in 2002, maybe you could.
Yeah, I could get away with
it better, maybe. I don't know. So it looks like in the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything, he has. It might be the Pac-Man tic-tac-toe. Yeah. Again.
I can't remember. It's really funny though because you could tell as soon as I noticed the change, even when I was a freshman in high school, so I was oh, somebody must have complained.
Yeah.
I noticed it immediately.
Yeah. So it was a really good movie. And, like we said, it's based on the story of Jonah, which is found in the book of Jonah. Jonah. Which I guess we have to say that because the last few episodes we've done, story of David that's found in 2 Samuel or whatever. So
this one is a little more self-explanatory.
A little more self-explanatory. You don't have to think so hard about where to find it.
Yeah, and this one had the Newsboys swimming with fishes in the credits.
Yeah, Belly of the Whale.
Dude, I'm telling you, they went out. They went all out for this, and I'm so proud of them for doing it just because it proved they could.
Yeah.
And honestly, we would have kept watching them. If they could have figured out a way to make another, even if it was still pirates and they were doing another story.
Yeah.
Bros, we would have all jumped in.
Right.
We would all jumped in. I went and watched Pirates Who Don't Do Anything when it came out, and that was a few years later. So I probably was like a senior in high school or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's do it.
Yeah, well, because this was also like peak Newsboys too.
Yes.
Of like they didn't have to do this.
No.
This little cartoon thing.
No, it was definitely a treat for them too.
Yeah.
And I think on the Pirates movie, which maybe we can do down the line, I'm pretty sure Toby Mac does the song on the credits for him.
I think he does.
These people didn't have to. They were solely doing it because they knew it'd be hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. So the big thing about this one is this is kind of where Big Idea kind of like starts its fall apart thing of like where they spent so much money on this movie and hired who knows how many people to come be a part of this movie, which obviously you're making a movie and
it's going to be way different.
It's going to be a huge thing.
Because it's like they were used to doing like 30 to like 45 minutes, and this is like I didn't look up the runtime, but it's got to be at least an hour and a half.
Yeah. It's 83 minutes. Is how long this movie is.
So let's see that. Yeah, that's almost
an hour and a half.
Almost an hour and a half.
So I mean, like, it says right here that in the box office, it says Jonah was released on October 4th, 2002, in 940 theaters, debuting at 6th place with 6.2 million in its first weekend of release. But then it says it started falling and falling and falling. At the end of its theatrical run, the film had grossed over 25.6 million worldwide. There was only one foreign market that played it, which was in Russia.
Oh, that's weird.
Isn't that weird?
That's so weird.
Like, I could have given you a million guesses what country played this movie.
I know. I would have kept going, and you would have been like, shush, it's Russia. I'm like, really?
That's funny.
Never would have guessed that, ever. Yep. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that's funny.
I could see where it was 6. Let's see, 2002. They were doing... I'm trying to think what movies were coming around. I think they were still doing, like, Star Wars, and I know... and, like, Harry Potter, and even Twilight might have came out by then. So, I mean, there would have been big competition.
Yeah. So it says famous movies in 2002. The... Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then you've got, the Austin Powers stuff.
Yeah.
And, a lot of movies. So it's like one of those
movies.
things, like you go to the theater and it's like we've got Spider-Man, Star Wars, Harry Potter. Veggietales? What?
Yeah, because they would have been, that would have been, especially in October's kind of a throwaway month probably anyway. That was probably safe for them to do that.
Right.
But still, it's like... That, I mean, they were making they still make tons of movies, and they started making them longer again.
Yeah.
But around that era, they were really pushing, like, CGI and, like, super, like, special effect kind of stuff. So I could see how it would almost look outdated even.
Yeah. So here's another one, 2002, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, listen... I know for a fact I got to go to the theater way too many times that year because I mean, yes, I was a freshman in high school, so, in theory, I should have gotten to go.
Lilo and Stitch came out in 2002.
I'm just like, there's so much competition they have.
Spirit.
Spirit.
We should do an episode just on Spirit.
I'll just, y'all.
That's not necessarily Christian media, but it should be.
Honestly, it's so great. My kids still watch that. Alice, when she was little, I put it on So she would take a nap.
Uh-huh.
And so she used to sleep to that movie like literally every day. And to this day, if I every once in a while will let them watch a movie and lay like on a pallet.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, if she's just not super sleepy, if the first movie goes off, she'll come in and say, "Mom, can I put on Spirit?" Because she knows it'll make her fall asleep.
Your mom used to have that like van that had that like
the TV in it.
The TV in it, and we would watch Spirit
all the time.
Every time we got in that van, we would watch Spirit
all the time.
Every single time. Like it probably was so messed up by the time we got.
I'm sorry, but to take this rabbit trail, we'll come back to Jonah, I swear, people, very soon. But can we just take a minute to appreciate how good that movie must have been? Because it captivated us. And it's just Matt Damon, like, talking for 90% of that movie. There's, like, I think, like, Adam Beach or somebody is the Indian boy, but I don't remember his name in it. And he, so there's, like, 3 or 4 characters outside of Spirit that talk, and we are mesmerized by that.
Dude, Spirit was nominated for 1 Oscar.
Yeah.
And that's low. That should be so many more Oscars.
It should be more.
It should win though. It should win it every year.
It should have won Best Picture for sure. But was it? I think Bryan Adams is the one that does the music.
Dude, Bryan Adams goes so hard.
It was so cool. I actually have the songs on a play. Adam has them on a playlist that the kids listen to off his Spotify, and they will seriously like scream shout these songs. Like they love this music, and I still do too. Like Adam will turn it up, and we're just like, yes.
Is Bryan Adams? Is he the one that the Tarzan music too?
No, that's Phil Collins.
Phil Collins. Okay, Phil Collins. Yeah, both of those guys, man. They did not have to go as hard as they did, but I'm glad they did.
Above and beyond. And it's and that's another thing is you can tell they just really love their jobs.
Yeah.
And that's why like I think with media in general, I think I appreciate so much is the fact that you can see the people who like their jobs or not.
Yeah.
Veggietales did not have to do an hour and a half over Jonah. Like honestly, they could have made this kept basically the same general storyline and shrunk it by so much. I mean, it might have needed to be a little bit longer, like Esther was a little longer, but it did not need to be this cool.
Yeah.
They put so much work into having all these separate storylines that are clashing because they knew Jonah itself wouldn't answer all your questions.
Right.
They didn't have to do that. They could have just been like, get to the end and be like, what about all this cattle? And then go to Bob and Larry being like complete shock on the counter.
Yeah, exactly.
And being like, I thought we filmed more of this. I thought we did too. Oh my gosh, it's the end.
Right, but instead he tells the story and then he says, the end, and slams the door shut or whatever. Wait, that's it?
Yep.
That's it. So it says here that Phil and Mike, the head people at Veggietales, originally planned to do a 45-minute Veggietales episode about Noah's Ark, but because animating animal fur was difficult, the story was switched over to Jonah due to water being easier to animate, and then they did eventually do Noah's Ark later.
Way later. That's the new animation too.
Right, and so I remember him saying that in an interview before though.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting that they were like, well, we'll just make a 45-minute, Noah's Ark special.
Yeah.
And then that turns into an hour and a half
Jonah
special.
Yeah. And they do this a lot too in their commentaries. They'll say, well, we had this idea, but when we started to work on it, we realized it wasn't possible. And so they just keep backburnering it. And so, excuse me, I do think there are some, I have the hiccups. There are some that they never got to.
Right.
Because it was just like, nope, not yet. But so Jonah is in the Bible is one of my absolute favorite stories.
Yeah.
Do you read this one a lot?
It's a good one. We actually just went over this one in our youth class the other night.
Yeah. Alice did too.
It's really good. I mean, it's a story that, obviously you hear as a kid, but it's pretty deep, honestly.
It's
more
super
than
deep.
just he gets swallowed by a fish and
Yeah, and you're just like you hear it so many times. You go back and read it, you're like, well, dadgum. He had deep-seated resentment for these people.
Oh yeah.
Like this is a note I made is like he immediately was like, bro, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like in the movie, they spend a lot of time introducing all this stuff. So they give they give all these songs and they do all this funny stuff, and it's like message from the Lord,
right?
And you're like, oh, that's so cute. And then it's like once you start getting into like the Bible bits that are for sure there, you're like, oh no, like he hated these people.
No, he did not like them at all.
Like there was no, like literally no compassion.
Yeah, I was trying to think earlier, like when we were going over this in class, was like, what's a modern day comp of like, people who just hate each other maybe as much as the Israelites did the Ninevites, or even like in Jesus' time when it talks about how like they hated the Samaritans.
Yeah.
And like it's not a good comp, but almost kind of like people who are like hardcore sports fans that have a rival against somebody.
Yeah.
How that's like, they won't wear that color
Yeah.
shirt. They won't, say that. They won't go to that city. Like it's like, but that times like infinity was like their hatred
and
towards
it's
each
like,
other.
and some people are like, well, get a little political for just a second and be like Israelites and the Philistines.
Right.
I mean, the Palestinians.
Right.
But this is kind of the same people.
Right.
So, I mean, it's so bad. It's still kind of
yeah,
there.
if you look at the map, like where Jonah was at and then where Nineveh was,
I mean, it's still
close to the same of like
same
people don't like each other.
Rivalry.
Yeah, it's the same area and
But
they do not like each other.
But in that sense, I'm just like, what did they ever do to you, bro?
Yeah.
Like,
we don't get any background info.
There's
it's
no
just
information. And
Jonah
I know like
hates him.
Assyria is bad. Assyria is one of the main people they fight.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're bad. All these battles, I think even like some of the Joshua ones we were talking about, like these, like Assyria they were bad mamma jammas.
Yeah.
Not good people. And that's the only thing I can think of is just like maybe that nation was just so just like, ugh,
could be
just so not God fearing at all.
Yeah.
That it was just troublesome no matter what it was.
Right.
And Jonah was like, I just don't have the patience to deal with these people.
Right. And then on the opposite though of the Joshua thing though was like God said, go there because I'm going to have mercy on these people.
Yeah.
Like when it was the Joshua thing, he was like, they're in your land. I want you to have that land. Go take it.
Yeah.
But this one, it was like, okay, I know you guys don't like those guys. I know they're bad people, but I have mercy on them. And so I just think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and that was funny. And this is something that I kind of made a joke about when I was writing in my notes is there's just so much they had to do to translate this into the movies but also make it lighthearted.
Yeah.
So the pirates have to be pirates who literally don't pirate. and they're the only people willing to take Jonah anywhere.
Yeah.
I guess not anywhere, but like that far.
Right.
And it's like it would take weeks and weeks and weeks. Who has that time? And they're like, what?
No, we don't do nothing.
And then you get on the boat, and it's like they introduce Khalil, or Jonah calls him Carlisle. And you laugh because you're just like, why do we need all this? Honestly. Yeah. But I thought I laughed because it was kind of like having that voice of reason that was kind of speaking into what you're thinking as an audience. He kind of plays this role where he says things like God says in the book, and he also says things you're thinking.
Yeah.
It's like this kind of classic, very very classic theater kind of voice of reason. Like there's especially way back in the day where they were doing like all the Greek plays and stuff, they would always have that one character who would be kind of like a living conscience, and they would like be talking to the audience and talking to you and talking and like you, like the main lead person,
right? And
like interfering a little bit, but like not enough to like hurt anything. But they were just like always there because they were like the voice of like reason. And I was thinking, I think that's why Jonah is so crazy, because yes, God keeps telling him, bro, you're gonna do this. Like, we got to do this. These people deserve it. Like, he keeps pushing Jonah into this. Okay, go into the well then, or fish or whatever. Like, all these, and we can get to more in a second. But I'm just saying, God pushes Jonah through this lesson. It's not let me take you by the hand and I'll gently guide you. It's like pushing a stubborn donkey to get into the fence this whole time, because Jonah just is like no.
Yeah, he does so much like he does a lot of different things. One, he pays his own money
to go the other
opposite
way.
direction. Like it says that in the Bible. it says that he paid the fare. He was like, take me that. It wasn't that he was just like, okay, I'm just going to walk this way for free. It was like, I'm going to use my own money that I have to not go that direction, go the opposite direction.
Like actively.
And then he gets on the boat and, he's asleep. And then they come wake him up, and they're like, "Hey, come, we got to cast lots or whatever, and see whose fault it is." And then it, because something I read while we were getting ready for this that I never really thought about before was that like he didn't say like, "Okay, let me pray and ask God how to stop this storm."
No.
He was like, I'm just going to jump off of here, and that's what's going to stop it.
Yeah.
And it was like, he didn't know that. He was just like, maybe. But so I'm honestly thinking that he was almost literally like, maybe if I jump off of this storm,
I'll
die.
Yeah.
And then if I die, I don't have to go to Nineveh anymore.
Yeah, it was just like literally how many detours can I take?
Exactly. And so it's like he even took the almost death detour of like.
Yeah, and they do say, they're like, they assume it's like a God thing because of, there is like little g gods of earth and sea and stuff too. Yeah. But it's just nuts that he's like, you know what, you're right. The lot's cast on him, and he's like, well, I am a Hebrew and I'm running away from my Lord. Throw me into the ocean.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because you do think deep down inside you're right. He's not like, I'm repenting.
Yeah.
He's like, well,
yeah, it's not
maybe
like
this is another thing.
Lord, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna die because I'm so sorry. It's like, I don't want to go to Nineveh so bad that I'm willing to jump into this. Like, y'all throw me off of this boat, and then they're like, we don't want to do it, so they're like trying to row back to land or whatever.
Okay, and see, that's something you kind of skip over things like this. I was like, bro, these people are seriously trying all the things.
Yeah.
To be like, are you sure though?
Yeah.
Like, we got you.
We can try to row
back. We're good at our jobs.
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny. Like in the movie, they do Go Fish. Mm-hmm. And
I had those cards.
You did?
My mom got me those cards that was like the Go Fish cards that they had
amazing.
with. I had those. I don't know where they're at. They're probably in the trash, but I did have them as a kid.
Your mom was like, I am the best mom ever.
They gave this movie out on his birthday.
I have to get him these cards.
Have to get him these
Your
cards.
mom is the best mom, though, honestly.
Yeah, honestly.
But like, they cast a lot. They're doing all these things in the movie to try to portray this. So they got these pirates don't pirate, so they're not good.
Yeah.
At working a ship. So of course they would panic if a storm came up. Then when it's time when they're like trying to like, oh, we'll take you back. They're like, wait a minute. And then they like pull out that motor, the boat motor.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And then it like drops into the ocean.
Maybe I pressed this button and pulled this lever.
So great.
So good.
So great. But there's all these things that you don't really realize that's what they're doing, and then you go back and read it. You're like, oh, that's casting lots. Yeah, that's trying to row back to shore.
Yeah, and then he said, like, I think they said that they threw stuff off the boat to make it lighter.
Yeah,
it says they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship.
Right.
That was before Jonah even woke up. So wouldn't it be so funny? Jonah had like a suitcase and they threw it off the boat, and then he wakes up. Hey, where'd my suitcase go?
Oh, well, my bad.
That's not the worst thing that's going to happen to you today.
Nope. Not by far.
So that's all chapter 1. All that is chapter 1.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And that's why I'm like, they were thinking, this has got to be why they were thinking, no, this is an hour and a half movie.
Yeah.
Because you go back and you read it and you realize how much is crammed into this.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to be like, I'm not trying to be like nitpicky and like, oh, that's wrong. But I also do want to see, they don't go like too crazy and they keep everything kind of pointing towards the same thing.
Yeah. And
so I'm kind of watching and I'm reading and I'm making notes and I'm just like, and I'm also trying to make notes about, like how this connects to Jesus later. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is only the first like 10 minutes of this movie.
Yeah, I know.
And I've already written like 4 pages of notes. Yeah. And like, I'm not going to need all these. Like, it was just wild.
Well, when I went to go, I don't know how many times I've read this story, but when I read this the other day, I literally got to the chapter 1 and I was like, oh, we're like halfway through this story already, and that's only chapter 1.
So,
like I feel like
yeah.
maybe not halfway through the story, but a lot of stuff has happened in
There's
one chapter.
Yeah, and there's something with Jonah too. There's a lot of things that kind of happen. I would say not really on the sidelines, but it's more like they're happening, but you don't really see that they're happening a lot. Like it just says later it says it takes like 3 whole days to get across the city. So instead of being like, and every day Jonah walked this so many miles, it just kind of was like, well, the message spread.
Right.
Like, I mean, so even the way it's written, even though there's so much cram packed in there, it's not even like deep for a story. It's not even great storytelling.
Right.
Like not to be mean, because it's, who cares? I mean, like,
well,
if it was like letters or whatever.
Did Jonah write this book?
See, that's what I don't know. I don't know if anyone's ever figured that out, because it sounds almost like someone telling a story about him.
Mm-hmm.
But Esther's kind of like that too, and Ruth and Naomi are like that too. So you wonder if it was like stories they had been told and someone wrote them down later.
Right.
It
just makes you wonder, because like, if it was somebody that was like, because you would think, okay, if this is Jonah telling this story, with as like, crazy as Jonah is, would he have included some of the stuff that happened or whatever?
Or would he try to make himself look cooler?
Would try to make himself look cooler.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyway, it's just, I don't know. That's, I guess, a question for another time, but it's just interesting.
All you Bible scholars.
If you're a Bible scholar, comment on this video and tell us who wrote the book of Jonah.
Who wrote Jonah, and maybe why.
And also, was it a whale or a big fish?
Was it a whale or a big fish? Okay, so that's something too, is like, did they just, because there's some fishes out there that are huge. There's like catfishes that are gigantic.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, why whales? Like, who decided whales?
Whales are, they're massive.
Massive, but
like,
are they over there? Like, I don't know. That's what I was thinking, is I need to learn my geography.
Because is that the Mediterranean
better.
Sea? Is that where that's at?
I believe so. I'm so bad at geography. So bad.
Let's look it up.
I'm decent at social studies. Geography was a little bit like, I could do my state capital.
So it's the Mediterranean Sea. So I don't know if whales are native to the Mediterranean Sea or not. But anyway, Jonah got swallowed by something.
A huge fish.
A huge fish, because that's all the Bible says. The Bible says a great fish or a huge fish to swallow Jonah. Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights.
Does it say in the Bible 3 days and 3 nights?
Yeah, that's verse 17.
Okay, I couldn't find it, and when I was listening, I couldn't hear it.
It's still in chapter 1. There's so many things in chapter 1. That's how chapter 1 ends. Is it says Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights.
Okay, so it does say it. Because then, I get so weird about things like that. I'm like, wait, did we just make that up too?
Yeah. So one other thing that I love about this book is it, like, so we talk about, like, how the whole book just ends like suddenly.
Yes.
But also, if you just read it chapter by chapter,
they all do.
They all do that. So chapter 1 ends with, now the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. And then you go to chapter 2, and the end of chapter 2 says, and the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah on dry land.
Oh my gosh, they all do that. I'm just really
every single chapter
hearing it in my head, and the U version's the dude's voice. Oh my gosh.
And the Lord commanded. Yeah. It's
my gosh.
It's just all in that way. So it's like, whoever wrote this, not great at writing.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder if it was like some kind of letters back and forth too. So they're kind of like 1 letter, 2 letter, 3 letters. So they're weird.
Right.
And then they kind of like got combined.
Like 3 is the only semi-normal one, where he says, when God saw what they did and how they turned from their evil ways, he relented and did not bring on them the destruction that he had threatened. So that's a good ending, right? And then chapter 4 is wonderful.
So one thing about the movie versus the Bible that I absolutely adored was how they set everything up with Jonah getting into Nineveh because the pirates won that sweepstakes. Mm-hmm. And I know it's so unnecessary and stupid, but it was like, when you really think about it, could you imagine, how did you start wondering, did he just come in?
Yeah.
I mean, most cities had like state your business type situations. So then he's like, I have to say I'm coming here because the God's angry with you. And then they'd be like, which one? Who cares?
Right.
Like, and so I think, like, for a child, I like that they caused a way for him to be in there.
Yeah. But even as an adult, like, it does
still,
make you wonder,
read it,
like,
you're
how
like,
did
I don't
he get there?
understand how he got this far.
Yeah.
I mean, this dude's hateful towards you. Like, it's not like he was like, pretty, please let me in.
Right.
Like, this dude, I mean, and he does change his tune a little bit after being in the whale. He has that whole thing about, you know, like saving, like, you know, like save me from Sheol and all this. So you can tell he's like trying to be repentive. And he's like, okay, I'm sorry, I repent of being like crazy. But then in the end, he's like mad that God doesn't demolish him. So was he really all that repentant?
Right.
So it's kind of like,
I've always wondered if his prayer is more or less like a,
please just get me out of this. I promise I'll be better.
Kind of one of those, like, I'm sorry I got caught. Like,
yeah,
you know, answer, or, you know,
more
try
like
to get
ask
forgiveness.
for forgiveness versus permission.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
And but one thing is, that I thought was really funny is, and I know, and I think why, and I just could not find it because, like, Lord forgive me, but I didn't think of it fast enough, and I just didn't take the time. But I think I think why in the movie they talk about how we use the big fish in our art and stuff is, I'm pretty sure the Assyrians are who worship, like, the Dagon or Dagon or whoever, which was like a fish looking mermaid type looking god, and it's the one that when the Ark of the Covenant comes in, it falls down.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's where they get that from, and where they're like, you know, and they're doing all that. And I liked in how in Veggietales it brought out they believed him because he had been in the whale, because it's kind of like when you really think about this, like, why would they have believed him?
Yeah.
Like, it's just so kind of like, and they believed him. And the word spread, and it reached to the king.
Yeah.
And it's like, so even the animals were fasting and, like, in sackcloth, which means they, like, rubbed ashes, like, all over their livestock. It's, like, wild when you think about this.
Come here, Bessie.
Right?
Rub you with sackcloth.
Hey, Junior. Go get old Bessie out of the pasture. We got to rub ashes all over.
Like, what?
It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
Yeah, and also one other thing is
crazy.
Where he says, you know, because you mentioned earlier that, you know, the Bible says that it took 3 days to go through the city because it was that massive.
Yeah,
and it just says this is just how the Bible presents it. Nineveh was a very large city. It took 3 days to go through it. Jonah began going a day's journey into the city, proclaiming 40 more days, and Nineveh will be overthrown.
Yeah.
Which, like, that's all he says. And so it doesn't say that, like, it just says he went, like, so it takes 3 days to get in. He only went a day's worth traveling. So did he just say it and then everybody heard him, or was it just the people that were there and then they were like, oh, well, we'll tell the people that are 2 days journey behind and 3 days journey behind.
And so, like, in Veggietales, they gather them all up to like punish them. And like, I get this because as a child, there's no way I would have believed an entire city would have heard that. And so I was just kind of like, there's things like that like, I don't think it necessarily goes against the Bible so much that you're like, bros, don't watch this. But at the same time, you do laugh because you're just like, where are they coming up with all this stuff? Because it's like, this city is huge. It says later, do you not care about the more than 120,000 souls that are in here plus the cattle? Like, that's it. Yeah. That's the end of the books.
Yeah.
And you're like, more than 120,000? Excuse me, sir?
Yeah. That's a lot of people.
A lot of people. And I think it might just say men. It may not even say people. So that might be like 120,000 men plus other people.
Right. So he says, and should I not have concern for the great city of Nineveh, in which there are more than 120,000 people?
Yeah.
And so, so it makes you wonder, because, you know, a lot of times he would say, you know, because they wouldn't count women in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, they say the census is really based on men, probably.
Right, like the feeding of the 5,000 or whatever. Yeah. That was only the men or whatever.
I think it's the assumption that they have if they have families, they have families, and they provide for those families because everything comes through the man, I guess.
Right. Anyway, regardless, even if that does count everybody, 120,000 people is a lot of people. If you were in a group of 120,000 people and somebody was like, far away, and you're like, hey, they would not hear you.
They would not hear you.
There's no way.
And like, is he like the street preachers walking down the road? So imagine if that's it too. He's just been walking for a whole day yelling in 40 days.
And he also smells like fish guts.
God, yes, he stinks and he looks terrible. He's going to look like a hobo. He's going to look like a homeless person that has
Jonah
never
the hobo.
ever had a house. He's going to smell terrible. He's going to look crazy.
Yeah, he had to look rough.
So rough. And he's yelling. He's yelling
this 40 more days, and Nineveh will be overthrown. And like, that just kills me every single time, because
it's not even like whenever John the Baptist comes, turn and repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand. There's nothing like that.
Right. And so he just says 40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown. And every single one of them is like, oh my, I believe in your Lord God now.
Right?
And then the king's like, let's make a decree
that everyone
has to do this now.
Everybody.
And so you have to know that, like, I mean, maybe they did know. Maybe it was just, I don't know. But it's just interesting
wild.
to me.
And I mean, they might have heard of God and understood some of that. I don't know. The timeline's kind of sketchy in my brain. But I'm just like, oh my gosh.
It's very interesting.
And Jonah's, I think the thing that really gets me about Jonah, honestly, I'm so sorry I have the hiccups, is when you really read this, even when you watch Veggietales or don't, it's a great movie. I highly suggest do. The songs in it alone are amazing. Mm-hmm. But like, just reading it, and you're just like, these people, like, just what had they have seen or heard, or like, how were their hearts prepared for this?
Yeah.
Because Jonah didn't want to do this. There's no way he was doing this greatly.
Right.
There's no way. Because as soon as he got done, he was like, well, God, I told him, now zap him.
Right.
Like,
yeah, so
there was
chapter
no.
4,
there was
to finish
no.
this off, he says, and then this is top 10 God moments in the Bible. When Jonah, he does his little hissy fit to God about like, all right, why don't you just kill him or whatever. And in the verse 4 it says, but the Lord replied, is it right for you to be angry? Yes. I love that. I love that so much. And then he goes on and on and on, the whole plant thing or whatever. And then he says to Jonah again, is it right for you to be angry about the plant?
Yeah, he's like, that I made grow and die in 24 hours, basically.
Yeah. And he says, and then his response is, it is. I'm so angry. I wish I were dead. Yeah, that's insane.
It's just, and I think this is why Veggietales really captures this so well. And it's such a good, I will never not watch this, because the whole setup for this whole movie is they're supposed to be going to go watch something. And you have Dad Asparagus being the typical passenger princess trying to entertain the troops.
Right.
But then you also have the driver who's like, oh my God, I can't hear, I can't think, I can't see, I can't breathe. Yeah. And they kind of do set up Bob the Tomato to be a smidge cranky, honestly. Yeah. He's a little bit particular. A little bit. And he can't read the map, he can't see, he can't do this, he can't do that. And and they have it set up where the tensions have been built. Uh-huh. And then, they have to pull into this cafe, and they don't know if they're going to get to this concert.
What seafood?
It's just so, everything's so heightened. Uh-huh. And then the pirates come in, and they're teaching, they're trying to teach the kids about compassion and mercy, and they tell this story. And then, the parents start showing up and they're listening. I mean, Bob and Dad Asparagus show up and they're listening. And then at the end of it, like you said, they just slam the door shut and they're like, the end.
Yeah.
And then the parents are mad, the kids are mad, and everyone's thinking, did we learn anything?
Right. Right. Well, I mean, honestly, if you just read the book of Jonah, like if you were like, I'm going to sit down here and read the book, you read it, and then it just ends that way, and you're like, oh, like.
Maybe I should read this again.
Maybe my Bible's messed up. Maybe I'm missing a page of like it makes you wonder like that.
I can't tell you how many times I go back and read a couple of parts because I'm like, did I the 3 days thing? I legitimately couldn't remember if it was in there because my eyes kind of jump around like that anyway. It's really, really hard for me to reread stuff. And but that's what I keep thinking. I was like, honestly, what do we Like, God did so much for so many other people. Do we really need that story?
Right.
And why that story is such a classic. This is for you. This is for you who claim to believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot go around just flat hating people. You cannot go around being compassionless and like you have to have mercy. You have to have compassion. You have to have forgiveness.
Right.
You have to see God. God, am in charge.
Yeah.
You have to see God the Father, put all this together. Dang it. Not that God would say dang it, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the reason this is in the Bible, because as much as I liked writing all these notes about the songs and like laughing that they let Kalil be the worm that eats the plant.
Yeah.
And he's all like, so they say he's a caterpillar. And he's like, well, that's only half true. My mom was a worm. My dad was a caterpillar. But we're okay with that now.
We're okay with
and
that
he makes
now.
that joke all the time.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, and then he gets to be the one that gives him that speech
Yeah.
about you're more upset over this plant
Yeah.
than those people down there. And it's
Yeah.
the best. Oh my gosh. Like, I to this day get a little antsy when I watch it. Because
Yeah.
I'm just like, God, yes, keep telling them.
It's so good, and
Keep
so
telling
we
them.
learn that, and then also, the other thing that I think that we learn is kind of a two-part thing. One is that God is a God of second chances.
Yeah. Oh, that song.
And he, when we talk about how does this relate to Jesus?
Yes.
Jesus said, "Forgive them 70 times, 7 times,"
Yes.
or whatever. So he's saying, if he's willing to give us a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth chance,
Then why not us?
why not us? Why not other people?
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I just think it's so important that like we see that God's plan prevailed despite Jonah not wanting it to.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he
Exactly.
really did not want to go do this.
He tried everything he could think of.
Everything he could think of, and then like we were talking about, like while he was doing his sermon, he smelled bad, he looked bad, he probably wasn't super excited to be there.
No.
He really didn't like him, and just like so all these things why he didn't want to go in the first place. Well, now he's there, he's in the midst of it all.
Yeah.
And so it's like, even though his sermon was maybe a half-hearted, just, hey, the city's going to be overthrown.
God told me to tell you this.
God told me to tell you this, whatever. And then he left, like, it says, like, the king and everybody there was like, we're going to believe on this God that you came and told us about.
Yeah, and it's like the king made a decree. So
Yeah.
it wasn't even just like the king was like, oh, me too. The
Yeah.
king was like, no, we're doing like just the level of like true repentance that would take for a king to decree that. Kind of like in Daniel, where whenever the king does that too, Daniel's God will be our God.
Mm-hmm.
They do that in Daniel for a while because it's just wild that this is how that God reaches people.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, on one hand with Joshua, it was just like wiping out people left and right. But in this one, he's like, no, we need to save these people.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's about the Old Testament that's just so hard to see it. And I've been listening to different random like lessons here and there. And that's something that just keeps coming up is God never intended for you not to be able to see this.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for goodness sakes, Jonah was asleep during a storm. Who else was asleep during a storm? Jesus.
Yeah.
And this is something that I'm listening to Mike Winger right now, and he's going through Hebrews, but he was saying, like consistency, and then he was saying like, oh crap, I can't remember all three of the words, but he was like, basically what it is, it shows consistency, but it also elevates.
Yeah.
And so it's like, who was asleep during the storm? Jonah. Who else? Jesus. But what did Jesus do? Jesus calmed the storm. Jonah had to go through all of this and then like jump out into the water and hope God would fix it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, who was down in death? Because there are different views on this, that people believe that Jonah actually did die in the well. But if you believe that or not, who was close to death or at least actually dead for 3 whole days down in the bottom of the earth?
Right.
Jonah and Jesus, but like Jesus came back to life and stayed like, and Jonah, it's kind of like he did that too, but it's also like Jesus is better because he was there. He did it to save other people.
Right.
And it's just like, there's stuff like that throughout. And I think it's in Matthew possibly, but I'm really bad at this, where he says like the days of Jonah.
The sign of Jonah.
Like he's talking about himself and talking about like the signs of Jonah.
Uh-huh.
And it's just wild. You're just like, the entire Old Testament is this.
Yeah.
The entire Old Testament is this. It's just like, I don't want to be like rude to like our elders, because I don't think they meant to ever do this. But I think by pinpointing just just Noah's Ark or just Jonah or just like this and just that, and not teaching us as a whole these things.
Yeah.
I think they really kind of did. And I'm sure they were taught that way too, which is why they taught us that way.
Right.
It really, like, I'm 37 years old, and I'm finally truly seeing, oh no, this is one big story.
Yeah.
And I've been told that my whole life, and I've done tons of Bible studies. But you're reading Jonah, and I never have thought, oh, he was asleep.
Yeah.
During a storm too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not literally till like today.
So our son, he's got a little kids Bible thing, and we read it with him every now and then, and you know, like we said, like, you know, you hear all your life, you know, the entire Bible points to Jesus. Every story points to Jesus.
Like, you know.
And you know that, and so we're reading it's reading about the story of Abraham or whatever, and it's finishing the story, and it says something like, you know, and you know, Abraham put wood on his son's back, and the son went up the hill, and to be the sacrifice. And it's like, little did they know that X amount of years later, another father would put wood on his son's back and send him up a hill to be a sacrifice.
Exactly,
and
you're just like almost cry.
I know. Like, Cody's like, what are you doing, Dad? Why are you crying? Oh, I don't know. It's okay. It's just beautiful.
It's great. It's just so great. Yeah, our kids. We have it probably is the same one, but we have a children's Bible like that too. And I was like, dude, wish I would have had these when I was little.
I know. And so it's just cool. It's part of the reason that we're doing this is that, you know, there's so many stories, and Veggietales covers a lot of them, where they just point to Jesus, and I don't know, they do a really good job of doing it.
Yeah, and there's so much more we could talk about on this. I have so many things written down here that I just think are really funny. Like Halil wanted to sell all these things. Mm-hmm. And so then when they're getting in trouble, Jonah goes, oh, and a message from the Lord. Yeah. Like the little plush toy would. Uh-huh. And it's just stuff like, they do such a great job with that, is keeping it just light enough. Yeah. That a kid can make it through, but they're going to still learn something. But in the end, when it's like, what would you want? What did you want? A big dance, like Broadway number, musical number, and then Twippo shows up and was like, yes, Twippo. And they do the Jonah was a prophet.
Oh yeah,
the words to that song is so great,
so good. Jonah
was a prophet who never really got it. It's just like, we've been singing that since 2002.
Since 2002.
And you're like, but it's so true. You go back and you study it, and you're like, no, he never did.
Got it.
He never got it.
So with that, let's go over real quick before we end. Let's talk about some of the songs. So another one. So earlier we talked about how, you know, Veggietales was cool enough to get. Earlier we talked about how Veggietales was cool enough to get Newsboys. We didn't talk about how they also got Reliant K.
Yeah.
To do the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything.
Right.
And then they got Chris Rice, which he's not necessarily done anything now, but he did the Billy Joe McGuffrey song.
Yeah.
So good.
The soundtrack to Jonah, I think y'all had that.
It's good.
You?
It's good.
And it was so good.
So good. So those are the three that they had somebody else like
come in and do it, and you know they were like, yes, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, I will.
Can you imagine go to the Newsboys? Hey, we have a song for you guys to do. Oh, what's the song? Oh, it's called "In the Belly of the Whale." But also their
they
song
had the breakfast song. Then.
They probably wrote it themselves. Honestly,
I think so too. That's what I was thinking. I was like, this is peak Newsboys, but this is pre-Tate Newsboys.
Yeah,
and pre-Tate Newsboys had that. Like the breakfast
song.
My daughter literally goes around singing, and they won't serve breakfast in hell, like still like now, and like her friends look at her weird, and she's like, it's a great song.
You gotta go listen to it.
She's introduced so many people to that song. But like that's the vibe they were working with.
Yeah,
and so that
exactly.
it goes like we're sleeping with fishes here in the belly of the whale. It's so catchy, bro.
So good.
So
Go listen
catchy.
to it before the day is over.
I'll try. I might put it on the Facebook page for all of you.
Let's do that. And then also the Bald Bunny song that they sing on they're like, I'm a bald bunny.
Aaron was singing that just like yesterday. They were like, do you know Matthew knows like all those words? And I was like, really? And Alice was like, yeah, he YouTubed it for me once.
I did. I
was like, yeah, he did. Because I was like, Matthew is the king of Veggietales songs. I was like, he doesn't know it. He will get it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also you have, the Second Chances song where he's
song
in the
is
fish.
legit, bro. I listen to that song all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I will sing it, but I get a little wild. And so I had this really bad thing I do where I get a little wild and my husband will say, I thought you liked this song. Because they do that, second chances. And so I try to sound like uber gospel.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, second chances.
Yeah,
and
somebody said.
It's like terrible. Like
Somebody was
off-key
like,
and terrible.
it was like a picture and it was like, they're just vegetables. You can't tell what race they are or whatever. And then it's like, I bet I beg to differ or whatever. And then showed a picture of those angels or whatever.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they did such a good job with that too. Like we knew, like even if you've never been to even if you've barely heard black gospel, you've never been to a good black gospel church, you knew exactly what was happening with that song.
You didn't have any doubt.
You knew, and it was great, and you're better for it, honestly. You're 100% better for it. I did post that song on the Facebook page, I'm pretty sure,
yeah,
so definitely go
check
listen to that.
out. Go listen to it. Just listen to the whole soundtrack, all the songs.
It kills. It just...
So good.
Such a good one. Like with kids saying now, it's like it slaps.
It slaps. No cap, bro.
They're all bops.
Yeah. Man.
Cringy. I'm living my best trying to embarrass my teenager life right now.
As soon as I hear any of them, I'll use it.
I use it all the time.
And I try to not use it correctly.
I do
it's
too.
Even more cringy.
I do too. I'll say I don't do skibbity very much because I think that one's weird.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I'll be like, oh, is this Sigma? I feel like this is Sigma. And it's so great. It's so great.
Oh, so good. So good. Well, that's Jonah, a Veggietales movie. And we could make this an hour and a half. How long
we really could have.
Is.
I'm not kidding, y'all. I really did have like five.
Maybe we'll do a part 2.
5 pages of notes. And I didn't even try to look at them because I knew I wouldn't need them. I just needed to write them down.
Yeah.
Because it was too big. It was too big.
But yeah, so I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. Like I said, we could go a whole lot deeper, but
yeah, and I
think
just for the sake of time, we should definitely end it here. But I will say, this one didn't have a countertop. This one didn't have any extra verses because it was a full length. So this one really straight up is just Jonah.
Yeah.
They didn't try to hint you towards anything else.
Right.
And they really just kind of let it, let the chips lie where they may kind of thing.
Right.
And I absolutely loved it. I really do. I kind of want sometimes to email them and be like, please pick something else. Do it again.
Do another one.
Do it
Get
again. We will get you. We're all grown up now. We need movies to take our kids to. Please.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, do we say we love you? God loves you very much on this one. They didn't say that one on this one.
That's true. They didn't. They just ended it.
Yeah.